Princess Lyra stood at the viewing window of the space station, her silver robes flowing around her like liquid metal. She kept her face perfectly calm, just as she had been trained since birth. A Valorian princess never showed emotion. It was the most important rule of her people. The station was called Harmony Point, a neutral meeting place where different alien species could talk and make agreements. Today, Lyra was here to discuss peace with the humans. Her father, the Emperor, had sent her because he believed she would not fail. She could not fail. Lyra turned away from the window and looked at her advisor, Lord Caven. He was old, with pale blue skin and dark eyes that seemed to see everything. He stood with the same perfect stillness that all Valorians mastered. "The humans will arrive soon," Caven said, his voice flat and emotionless. "Remember, they are a young species, only 200 years in space. They do not understand proper behavior." Lyra nodded once. She had studied the humans. They were loud, emotional, and often violent. Their history was filled with wars and conflicts. Yet somehow, they had survived and grown stronger. It puzzled her. The door to the meeting room opened with a soft hiss. Lyra turned, her hands folded in front of her, her face showing nothing. She expected to see the human diplomats enter with nervous energy, perhaps bowing too much or speaking too loudly. Instead, a man walked in with confident steps. He was tall, with dark hair and brown eyes. He wore a dark blue uniform with patches and medals on his chest. Behind him came 3 other humans, 2 men and 1 woman, all wearing similar uniforms. "Princess Lyra," the man said, stopping a few feet away. He did not bow. He did not lower his eyes. He looked directly at her with a small smile. "I'm Commander Jake Martinez of the Terran Defense Fleet. Thank you for agreeing to meet with us." Lyra felt something strange flicker in her chest. She pushed it down immediately. "Commander Martinez, welcome to Harmony Point." Jake's smile grew wider. "Please. Jake is fine. We're all equals here. Right?" Lord Caven made a small sound of disapproval. No one spoke to a Valorian princess as an equal, but Lyra kept her face calm. "If you wish, Commander." They sat at a long table made of dark stone. The humans sat on one side, Lyra and her people on the other. For the next hour, they discussed trade routes, territorial boundaries, and defense agreements. The humans asked good questions. Jake especially seemed sharp, catching details that others might miss. Then Lord Caven said something that changed everything. "Of course, humanity must understand its place in the galaxy. You are children compared to civilizations like ours. We have existed for 10,000 years. Your species has barely learned to leave your planet." Lyra saw Jake's jaw tighten slightly. His smile did not fade, but something shifted in his eyes. "That's true, Lord Caven. We are young. But young doesn't mean weak or foolish. Sometimes fresh eyes see problems that old eyes have gotten used to." "Are you suggesting that the Valorian Empire has become blind with age?" Caven's voice remained flat. But Lyra heard the insult beneath it. "I'm suggesting," Jake said calmly, "that every civilization has strengths and weaknesses. Ours is adaptability. We learn fast. We survive against odds that would crush others. That's not something to dismiss." Before Caven could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Red lights flashed along the walls. A voice came over the speakers, speaking in the common galactic language. "Emergency. Hull breach in Sector 7. All personnel evacuate immediately." This is not a drill. Everyone stood at once. The door burst open, and station security rushed past. Lyra heard explosions in the distance. The station shook beneath her feet. "This way," one of the security officers shouted. "Rebels have sabotaged the life support systems. They're trying to kill everyone aboard." Lyra felt her heart rate increase. She forced it back down, controlling her breathing. A Valorian princess did not panic. But then she looked at Jake and saw something that shocked her. The human's face had changed completely. His casual smile was gone. His eyes were sharp and focused. He moved like lightning, grabbing weapons from the security officers who ran past. "Kate, Danny, secure the princess and her people," Jake ordered. "Get them to the evacuation pods. Ron, you're with me. We need to reach the life support controls before this whole station becomes a coffin." "Sir, you can't go there alone," the woman named Kate said. "The rebels will be heavily armed." "That's why I'm not asking you to come," Jake replied. He checked his weapon with practiced movements. "Your job is to keep these people alive. My job is to make sure there's a station left to evacuate from." Lyra watched him. And for the first time in her life, she could not control what she felt. Her telepathic senses, which all Valorians possessed, reached out without her permission. She touched Jake's mind for just a moment. What she felt made her gasp. There was no fear in him. None. Instead, there was determination like steel, protective instinct burning like fire, and a strange kind of joy. He was not afraid of dying. He was ready to fight, ready to save people he had just met. Jake looked at her. For a second, their eyes met. "Don't worry, princess. I've been in worse situations. Get to safety." Then he was gone, running toward the danger while everyone else ran away from it. The station shook again. Kate grabbed Lyra's arm. "Your Highness, we need to move now." But Lyra could not move. She stood frozen, her mind still reeling from what she had felt in Jake's thoughts. This was not how civilized beings behaved. This was not logical or controlled. This was pure, raw courage mixed with something she could not name. Another explosion, closer this time. Lyra finally moved, letting the human woman guide her through the corridors. Behind them, she heard the sound of gunfire. Jake had reached the rebels. As they ran, Lyra tried desperately to rebuild the walls around her emotions. But something had cracked. The perfect calm she had maintained for 26 years was breaking, and she did not know how to stop it. Through the chaos and noise, one thought kept echoing in her mind. One feeling she could not suppress, no matter how hard she tried. She wanted to see Jake Martinez survive. She wanted it with an intensity that terrified her. A Valorian princess was not supposed to want anything. She was supposed to exist in perfect balance, free from such primitive feelings. But as Lyra climbed into the evacuation pod, her hands shaking slightly, she realized something had changed forever. The human warrior with his fearless smile and burning courage had done what no one else had ever managed. He had made her feel. The evacuation pod touched down on the surface of Luna 3, a small moon with a secure diplomatic facility. Lyra stepped out onto solid ground, her legs still shaking from what had happened on the station. She hated that her body betrayed her this way. She hated that she could not stop thinking about whether Jake Martinez was alive or dead. Lord Caven walked beside her, his face as blank as always. "The humans showed their true nature today," he said quietly. "Violence is their first response to any problem." Lyra wanted to argue. She wanted to say that Jake had run toward danger to save others, including Valorians he had just met. But she said nothing. A princess did not argue with her advisors in public. The facility was built into the side of a mountain. Inside, it was all white walls and soft lighting. Guards stood at every corner. Lyra was shown to her quarters, a simple room with a bed, a desk, and another viewing window that looked out at the gray landscape. She sat on the bed and finally let herself close her eyes. Immediately, she saw Jake's face. She felt the echo of his mind, that burning determination and fearless courage. Her hands clenched into fists. "Control," she whispered to herself. "Control is everything." A knock on the door made her stand quickly. She smoothed her robes and composed her face before saying, "Enter." The door opened. Jake Martinez walked in, alive and barely injured. He had a cut above his left eye, and his uniform was torn and dirty. But he was smiling. Lyra's heart jumped in her chest. She felt relief flood through her, warm and overwhelming. She fought it back with everything she had, keeping her face neutral. "Princess," Jake said with a small nod. "Just wanted to check that you made it down safely." "I am well, Commander. Thank you." Her voice came out steady, controlled. "Good. Were you successful?" "We stopped the rebels and got life support back online. Most people made it off the station safely." He touched the cut on his forehead and winced slightly. "Lost a few good people, though. Station security fought bravely." "I see." Lyra did not know what else to say. The humans mourned their dead openly. She had read. Valorians held private ceremonies where no emotion was shown. "I am sorry for your losses." Jake studied her for a long moment. "Are you really?" The question surprised her. "Of course. All life has value. That's not what I asked." Jake stepped closer. "I asked if you're sorry, if you feel anything about people dying today." Lyra felt anger spark inside her. She crushed it immediately. "My feelings are not relevant, Commander. Facts are what matter. People died. That is unfortunate." "Unfortunate," Jake repeated slowly. He shook his head. "You know what I think, Princess? I think you do feel things. I think you felt scared on that station. I think you're feeling something right now. But you've been trained to bury it so deep that you don't even know it's there anymore. You do not understand Valorian culture," Lyra said coldly. "We evolved beyond such primitive responses. Emotions cloud judgment and lead to poor decisions." "Emotions also make us human," Jake replied. "Or Valorian, or whatever. They remind us why we fight in the first place." Before Lyra could respond, Kate entered the room. "Sir, sorry to interrupt, but command says you're assigned to the princess's security detail while we're here." Jake raised an eyebrow. "Me? I'm not exactly diplomatic material. Kate, they want someone who can handle trouble. After what happened on the station, command isn't taking chances." Kate looked at Lyra. "Your Highness, Commander Martinez and his team will be responsible for your safety until the negotiations resume." Lyra felt trapped. Having Jake near her constantly would make it harder to maintain control. But she could not refuse without explaining why. And she had no logical reason. "Very well. Number 4. Thanks for watching. Werby went to the buddy 4 people self. Over the next 3 days, Lyra could not escape Jake's presence. He was always there, standing outside her door, walking beside her through the facility, sitting in the corner during her meetings. And worse, he kept talking to her like they were equals. "Morning, Princess. Sleep well?" he would ask cheerfully. "Did you try the Earth coffee yet? It's better than that bland Valorian tea. Beautiful sunset tonight. You should watch it from the observation deck." Lyra responded with short, polite answers. She kept her distance. She focused on her breathing and her mental exercises. But it was becoming harder each day. On the 4th day, she went to the training facility late at night, hoping to practice her meditation in peace. Instead, she found Jake and Kate in the combat ring. They were sparring, moving fast and fluid. Kate threw a punch. Jake blocked and countered. They moved like a dance, but violent and beautiful at the same time. Their bodies were covered in sweat. Neither held back. Lyra stood in the doorway, hidden in shadow, and watched. She could not look away. Jake moved with a grace that surprised her. For such a large man, he was incredibly quick. But what struck her most was the joy in his face. He was smiling as he fought. He laughed when Kate managed to land a hit on his ribs. "Nice one," he said, backing up and raising his hands. "Again? You're going easy on me, sir," Kate replied, breathing hard. "Never. You're just that good." They fought again. This time, Jake swept Kate's legs and she hit the mat hard. But she was laughing too. Jake offered his hand and pulled her up. "Same time tomorrow?" Kate asked. "Wouldn't miss it." Kate left through another door. Jake grabbed a towel and wiped his face. Then he turned and looked directly at where Lyra was standing. "You can come in, princess." "I don't bite." Lyra stepped forward, keeping her expression neutral. "I apologize. I did not mean to intrude." "You're not intruding. This is a public facility." Jake walked closer. "Want to try?" Try what?" "Sparring. Fighting. Whatever you want to call it." "I do not engage in physical combat," Lyra said. "Valorians resolve conflicts through logic and discussion." "Sure. But you must have some form of self-defense training, right? What if talking doesn't work?" Lyra hesitated. She did have training, but it was considered a necessary skill, not something to enjoy. "I am adequately prepared to defend myself if needed." "Show me." "Commander, I do not think. I'm assigned to protect you, princess. I need to know what you can do if things go wrong." Jake's smile faded into something more serious. "Please, humor me." Lyra found herself stepping into the ring. Jake moved to the center, taking a ready stance. "Just show me your basic defense. I'll come at you slowly." He moved forward, throwing a slow punch. Lyra blocked it with a precise movement, redirecting his force away from her body. Jake nodded and tried again. A little faster. Again. She blocked. They went back and forth, building speed. Lyra felt her body responding automatically, using techniques she had learned years ago, but rarely practiced. Jake pushed harder, forcing her to think faster. Then he swept at her legs. Lyra jumped back, but lost her balance. She started to fall. Jake caught her, his hands on her arms, steadying her. Lyra looked up at him. For the first time, she could not control her telepathy. It reached out and touched his mind again. She felt his concern for her safety. She felt his respect for her skill. And underneath it all, she felt something else. Something warm and complicated that she had no words for. Jake felt it too. His eyes widened slightly. "Princess?" Lyra pulled back sharply, breaking the contact. Her heart was racing. Her hands were shaking. "I apologize. I did not mean to." "It's okay," Jake said softly. "Whatever that was." "No, it is not okay." Lyra backed toward the door. "A Valorian does not lose control. Ever. I must go." She turned and fled, moving faster than dignity allowed. Behind her, she heard Jake call her name, but she did not stop. In her quarters, Lyra locked the door and leaned against it. Her breath came in short gasps. Her hands would not stop shaking. For the first time in her life, Princess Lyra was truly afraid. Not of danger or death, but of what she was feeling. She was afraid of Jake Martinez and what he made her want. She was afraid of the emotions that kept breaking through her control. Most of all, she was afraid that if she spent more time with him, she would lose everything that made her a proper Valorian. But the worst part was this. Despite all her fear, she wanted to go back to that training room. She wanted to stand close to him again. She wanted to feel that warmth in his mind once more. And that desire, that wanting, was the most terrifying thing of all. Lyra spent the next 2 days avoiding Jake as much as possible. She stayed in her quarters, claiming she needed time to study the peace proposals. Lord Cavan seemed pleased that she was finally acting like a proper princess again. But alone in her room, Lyra was not studying proposals. She was studying humans. She accessed the facility's database and read everything she could find about Earth. She learned about their wars, hundreds of them, spanning thousands of years. She read about World War II, about Vietnam, about conflicts in places with names she could barely pronounce. The violence should have disgusted her. Instead, she found herself fascinated by what came after. The humans did not just destroy. They rebuilt. They forgave. Sometimes, they created art and music and stories about their pain. They turned suffering into something meaningful. She found records of human poetry. Words written by soldiers in trenches. By people who had lost everything. By those who had loved and lost. The emotions in those words were raw and powerful and completely unlike anything in Valorian literature. One poem kept drawing her back. It was written by someone named Maya, an Earth woman who had lived 300 years ago. The words spoke about finding courage, not in the absence of fear, but in facing it anyway. Lyra read it over and over, feeling something shift inside her chest each time. A message appeared on her screen. It was from Jake. "Princess, I need to speak with you. It's important." She stared at the message for a long time before responding. "Very well. Come to my quarters." He arrived within minutes. When she opened the door, she saw worry on his face. He entered and stood awkwardly, not sure where to look. "What is it, Commander?" "I wanted to apologize," Jake said. "For the other night. I pushed too hard in training. I made you uncomfortable. That wasn't professional of me." See, Lyra had not expected this. "You have nothing to apologize for. The fault was mine. I lost control." "Control," Jake repeated, and she heard frustration in his voice. "That word again. Princess, can I ask you something? And will you give me an honest answer?" "I do not lie, Commander." "Fine. Then tell me this. What are you so afraid of?" The question hit her like a physical blow. "I am not afraid." "Great now, T." "Yes, you are. I see it every time you look at me. You're terrified of something." Jake stepped closer. "Is it me? Did I do something wrong?" "No. You did nothing wrong." Lyra turned away, looking out the window at the gray landscape. "The problem is not you. It is me. I don't understand." Lyra closed her eyes. She should not explain this. She should maintain proper distance. But something about Jake made her want to be honest, in a way she had never been before. "When I touched your mind," she said quietly, "I felt things that Valorians are not supposed to feel. Fear, yes. And something else that I do not have words for. Being near you makes those feelings stronger. It makes my control slip. If I lose control completely, I lose everything that makes me who I am." She heard Jake move closer behind her. "Maybe who you are isn't just what they trained you to be. Maybe there's more to you than perfect control." "You do not understand," Lyra said, her voice sharper. "My people have evolved beyond base emotions. We are better because we rose above them. Feeling what you feel would make me primitive, barbaric. Or maybe," Jake said softly, "it would make you more." Lyra turned to face him. "How can you say that? Your species tears itself apart with emotions. You fight wars over feelings. You destroy each other because you cannot control yourselves." "Yeah, we do," Jake admitted. "We're not perfect. We make mistakes. But we also love fiercely. We create beautiful things. We sacrifice ourselves for strangers. We find joy in simple moments. We cry when we lose people we care about. And that crying means something. It means they mattered. And you think that is better than peace? Better than logic? I think it's more alive." Jake reached out slowly, giving her time to move away. When she did not, he touched her hand gently. "You're not less than us, Princess. You're not more either. You're just different. But what if you could be both? What if you could have control and feeling? Logic and emotion? Wouldn't that make you stronger, not weaker?" Lyra looked down at his hand on hers. His skin was warm. She could feel his pulse, steady and strong. Through her telepathy, she felt his sincerity. He truly believed what he was saying. "I do not know how," she whispered. "Then let me teach you," Jake said. Let me show you what it means to be human. And maybe you can show me what it means to be Valorian. We can learn from each other. Lyra knew she should refuse. She should pull her hand away and order him to leave. But she did not want to. For the first time in her life, she wanted something for herself, not because duty demanded it. All right, she said. Teach me. Jake smiled, and Lyra felt her heart do something strange in her chest. Come with me. He led her through the facility to the observation deck. It was late evening, and the sun was setting on the horizon. The gray landscape turned gold, and orange, and pink. Sit, Jake said, gesturing to a bench near the window. Lyra sat. Jake sat beside her, close enough that she could feel the warmth from his body. Now, he said, I want you to just feel. Don't analyze. Don't control. Just let yourself experience this moment. I do not know how. Close your eyes. Focus on your breathing. Now, tell me what you feel. Not what you think. What you feel. Lyra closed her eyes. She breathed in slowly, then out. She tried to quiet her mind and just experience. I feel warm, she said. The light from the sun through the window. It is pleasant. Good. What else? I feel your presence beside me. It makes me feel. She struggled to find words. Safe and nervous. Both at the same time. That's okay. Feelings don't have to make sense. What else? Lyra went deeper. She let her telepathic senses expand gently, not pushing, just feeling. She felt Jake's mind beside hers, warm and steady like a fire on a cold night. She felt the sunset painting colors across her closed eyelids. She felt her own heartbeat, faster than it should be, and underneath it all, she felt something vast and terrifying and wonderful. She felt alive in a way she never had before. I feel like I am standing at the edge of a cliff, she whispered, like I could fall, but also like I could fly. When she opened her eyes, Jake was looking at her with an expression she had never seen on his face before. It was soft and intense at the same time. That's what being human feels like, he said. Every single day. They sat in silence, watching the sun disappear. Lyra did not try to control what she felt. She let the emotions wash over her like waves, strange and new and overwhelming. Jake, she said, using his first name for the first time. What if I cannot go back? What if I learn to feel? And then, I can never be a proper Valorian again. Then you become something new, Jake replied. Something that doesn't have a name yet. Is that really so bad? Before Lyra could answer, alarms blared throughout the facility. Red lights flashed. Kate's voice came over the communication system, urgent and sharp. Commander Martinez to command center immediately. We have incoming hostile ships. It's a Valorian attack fleet. Jake was on his feet instantly, his face shifting back into warrior mode. But he paused and looked back at Lyra. Stay here. I'll make sure you're protected. No, Lyra said, standing. If my people are attacking, I need to know why. I am coming with you. Princess, that was not a request, Commander. For a moment, their eyes met. Then Jake nodded. Stay close to me. They ran through the corridors to the command center. On the main screen, Lyra saw 3 Valorian warships approaching Luna 3. They were massive vessels, built for war, bearing the mark of the extremist faction that opposed peace with humanity. Lord Caven stood at another console, his face still showing nothing. But through her telepathy, Lyra felt his satisfaction. He had known this would happen. Perhaps he had even helped plan it. Caven, she said coldly. You betrayed us. I saved us, Princess. From you. Caven turned to face her. You have been corrupted by these humans. I felt it. Others felt it too. You are no longer fit to represent our people. The fleet is here to ensure humanity understands their place. Their place? Jake stepped forward, his hand on his weapon. You mean dead? If necessary, Caven said calmly. Lyra felt something break inside her then. Not her control. Something else. Something that had been holding her back her entire life. She felt rage. Pure, burning, righteous rage. And for the first time, she did not try to push it away. Lyra's telepathic power exploded outward. It was not controlled or precise. It was raw emotion turned into psychic force, and it hit everyone in the command center like a physical wave. Lord Caven stumbled backward, his perfect calm finally breaking. His eyes went wide with shock. Around the room, other Valorians gasped and grabbed their heads. Even Jake winced, feeling the edge of her power. "How dare you?" Lyra said, her voice shaking with fury. "How dare you use my name, my position, to justify this massacre? Princess, control yourself," Caven said. But his voice was weak now. "You are proving my point. You have become unstable." "No. I have become awake." Lyra walked toward him, her silver robes flowing behind her. "You speak of evolution, of rising above primitive emotion. But you know what I think? Caven, I think we did not evolve. I think we became afraid. We became so terrified of our own feelings that we cut them out and called it wisdom." She reached out with her mind and touched the minds of every Valorian in the room. She let them feel what she felt. The rage, yes, but also the wonder she had experienced watching the sunset with Jake. The fear and joy of being truly alive. The courage it took to feel things and choose to act anyway. Some of them pulled away, horrified. But others, especially the younger ones, hesitated. She felt their curiosity, their doubt. "The humans are not perfect," Lyra continued, "but they are alive in a way we have forgotten how to be. They taught me that strength is not the absence of feeling. Strength is having those feelings and still choosing to do what is right." "Enough of this philosophy," Caven snarled. He pressed a button on his console. "I have already given the fleet their orders. They will not stop unless you command them to. But you are no longer in command, Princess. I am acting on behalf of the High Council. These humans will be eliminated as a threat to our way of life." Alarms blared louder. On the screen, the Valorian warships were charging their weapons. The human forces on Luna 3 were scrambling to respond, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. Jake was already coordinating with his people. All defensive positions. Get civilians to the shelters. Prepare for— "Wait," Lyra interrupted. She looked at Jake, and in that moment, she made a choice. Not the choice a Valorian princess would make. Not the choice that duty demanded. The choice that her heart demanded. "I can stop this, but I need your trust." "You have it," Jake said, without hesitation. Lyra turned to the communications officer. "Open a channel to the flagship. Direct to Admiral Voss." The officer hesitated, looking at Caven. But Caven was still reeling from Lyra's telepathic assault. The officer opened the channel. "1. Lyra Wen. 1 Sen. 1 Sen." A face appeared on screen. Admiral Voss was old and severe, with scars across his pale blue skin. "Princess Lyra, step away from the humans. We are here to extract you from. You are here to commit murder in my name." Lyra cut him off. "And I will not allow it. You are not in a position to give orders, Princess. Lord Caven has informed us of your condition. You have been compromised." "I have been awakened," Lyra said. "And I am still a princess of the Valorian Empire. I am still the Emperor's daughter. And I am ordering you to stand down. I take my orders from the High Council, not from a corrupted royal." Lyra felt Jake tense beside her. She felt his desperation to protect his people. She felt the weight of all the lives that would be lost if she failed here. She took a breath. "Then I challenge Lord Caven's authority. Under the old laws, any royal may demand a trial by truth. I invoke that right now. Dieter. 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 Dieter." Dieter, Caven's face went pale. You cannot. That law has not been used in 1,000 years, because no one has had the courage to use it. But I do now. Lyra looked at the Admiral. You know the law. Admiral, if I invoke trial by truth, all hostilities must cease until the matter is resolved. Even the High Council cannot override that. Mark, Admiral Voss was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. Very well. Weapons hold. But Princess, if you lose this trial, the human settlement will still be destroyed. The channel closed. Jake let out a breath. What just happened? What is a trial by truth? It is an ancient Valorian custom, Lyra explained. Two parties in conflict join minds telepathically and share their complete truth. Every memory, every feeling, every intention is laid bare. The truth cannot hide. Witnesses observe and judge which party is acting with integrity, and if Caven wins, then he has the authority to proceed with his orders. The humans die, and I am removed from power. And if you win, then Caven is exposed as a traitor, and I have the authority to stop this war before it begins. Kate had joined them. Your Highness, is this safe? What if he tries to hurt you during this mind connection? He might, Lyra admitted. A trial by truth can damage both parties if either fights too hard. But it is the only way. Jake put his hand on her shoulder. Lyra, you don't have to do this. We can fight. We can. You will lose, Lyra said gently. Jake, I have seen your tactical reports. The Valorian fleet is too strong. Hundreds of humans will die. Maybe thousands. Unless I stop this now. By risking yourself. Yes. Lyra met his eyes. You asked me what being human feels like. This is it. Is it not? Feeling afraid, but doing what is right anyway. Protecting people you care about, even when it costs you everything. Jake's jaw tightened. Then, slowly, he nodded. Okay. But I'm staying right here. If he tries anything, you cannot interfere. But thank you. Lyra turned to face Caven. The old advisor had recovered his composure, but she could sense his unease. He had not expected this. Lord Caven, Lyra said formally, do you accept my challenge? Caven looked around the room. He could refuse, but that would make him look weak. It would make others question his certainty. I accept. Let all here witness the truth. They moved to an open space in the center of the command center. Lyra and Caven stood facing each other, just an arm's length apart. Other Valorians formed a circle around them, prepared to witness. Begin, one of the witnesses said. Lyra reached out with her mind. Caven reached out with his. Their consciousness touched, and then merged. It was like diving into a storm. Memories flooded between them, uncontrolled and raw. Lyra saw Caven's long life, his rigid dedication to Valorian purity. She saw his fear of change, his terror that the Valorians would become weak and emotional like other species. She saw his secret meetings with the extremist faction, his careful manipulation of events to make the humans look dangerous, his plan to use Lyra as a symbol of human corruption, justifying war. But he saw her memories too. He saw her childhood, trained from birth to suppress every feeling. He saw her loneliness, the isolation of being perfect. He saw her meeting Jake and feeling alive for the first time. Caven tried to paint these feelings as weakness. He pushed that narrative into the watching minds. See how she has fallen. See how the humans corrupted her. But Lyra pushed back. She showed them what Jake had taught her. She showed them the sunset, and the courage to feel fear, but act anyway. She showed them human poetry, and human love, and human sacrifice. Most importantly, she showed them the truth of Caven's plan. His willingness to murder innocents, not for protection, but for ideology. his desire for power disguised as devotion to tradition. The trial lasted only minutes in real time, but it felt like hours. Lyra felt Caven trying to force her out, trying to damage her mind. But she held firm. She had spent her whole life learning control. Now she used that control not to suppress her emotions, but to channel them into strength. Finally, it ended. They broke apart, both gasping for breath. Lyra's legs were shaking, but she forced herself to stand straight. The witnesses were quiet. Then, one by one, they began to kneel. Not to Caven, to Lyra. "The truth is clear," the lead witness said. "Lord Caven acted from fear and ambition. Princess Lyra acted from courage and compassion. The trial is decided in her favor." "Princess." Caven fell to his knees, his face showing defeat for the first time. "No," he whispered. "This is not how it should be." Lyra walked to the communications console. "Open the channel to Admiral Voss." The Admiral appeared again, and this time she saw respect in his eyes. "The witnesses have transmitted their verdict. Princess, I await your orders. Stand down and return to Valorian space. There will be no attack today. I will return to the homeworld to address the High Council personally. As you command, Princess." The Valorian fleet turned away. The crisis was over. Lyra felt her legs give out. Jake caught her before she hit the floor, lifting her easily. "I've got you." "Did I do it right?" Lyra asked, suddenly exhausted. Jake smiled, and she felt tears on his face. Humans cried when they were happy too, she remembered. "Yeah, Princess, you did it exactly right. You were incredibly brave." Lyra closed her eyes, letting herself rest in his arms. She had broken every rule of her people. She had felt fear and anger and joy and courage. She had risked everything, and somehow she had never felt more like herself. 3 days later, Lyra stood before the High Council of Valoria. The chamber was vast and cold, built from white stone that seemed to glow with its own light. 12 council members sat in elevated seats, looking down at her with expressionless faces. Her father, Emperor Thane, sat at the center, his pale blue skin marked with the silver patterns of age and wisdom. Lyra wore traditional ceremonial robes, darker than usual, symbolizing disgrace. Lord Caven had already testified against her. Now, it was her turn to speak. "Princess Lyra," her father said, his voice echoing through the chamber, "you are charged with abandoning emotional discipline, defying a council representative, and interfering with military operations. How do you answer these charges?" "Guilty," Lyra said clearly. "I do not deny what I have done." A murmur went through the council. They had expected her to defend herself, to argue that she had acted correctly. Admitting guilt was unusual. "Then you accept your punishment," Councillor Wren said. She was an ancient woman, thousands of years old. "You will be stripped of your title and exiled from Valorian space." "I accept exile," Lyra said. "But I reject the idea that what I did was wrong." Her father leaned forward slightly. "Explain yourself." Lyra took a breath. This was the moment. Everything she had learned, everything she had felt, came down to this. For 10,000 years, we Valorians have believed that suppressing emotion makes us superior. We have trained ourselves to feel nothing, to want nothing, to fear nothing. We call this evolution. We call this wisdom. She paused. "I call it cowardice." The council erupted. Several members stood, shouting objections, but Emperor Thane raised one hand, and silence fell immediately. "Continue," he said. "I met a human named Jake Martinez," Lyra said. "He showed me what we have lost. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is feeling afraid and acting anyway. Love is not a weakness. It is what gives us something to fight for. Joy, sorrow, anger, compassion, these are not flaws to overcome. They are what make life worth living. The humans are a violent species," Councillor Wren argued. They destroy each other constantly. Their emotions make them unstable. Yes, Lyra agreed. But they also create beauty, beyond anything we have made in centuries. They sacrifice themselves for strangers. They forgive terrible wrongs. They love with an intensity that terrifies them, and they do it anyway. Are they perfect? No. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of each council member. Lord Caven nearly started a war, not to protect us, but to preserve his ideology. He was willing to commit genocide to avoid change. How is that superior? How is that evolved? Caven acted from corruption. Another counselor said, that does not mean our entire philosophy is flawed, does it not? Lyra stepped forward. When was the last time any of you created something just for the joy of creating it? When did any of you risk yourselves for someone else, not from duty but from genuine care? Silence. Long, heavy silence. Finally, her father spoke. You speak dangerous words, daughter. Our way has kept us stable for millennia. It has prevented wars and suffering. It has prevented life, Lyra countered. Father, I love you. I love my people. I never knew that before because I was taught not to feel such things. But now I know, and I cannot go back to not knowing. Emperor Thane's face remained neutral, but Lyra felt something through her telepathy, a flicker of curiosity. Perhaps even understanding. What do you propose? He asked. Let me be a bridge, Lyra said, between our people and the humans. Let me show both sides that there is a middle path. We do not have to choose between pure emotion and no emotion. We can have both, control and feeling, logic and passion. That is true evolution. And if we refuse, then exile me. I will go to Earth and live among the humans. I will learn from them and teach them what I can. And perhaps, someday, some Valorians will choose to follow. The council deliberated. Lyra was sent to wait outside the chamber. She stood alone in a corridor of white stone, her heart pounding. Despite everything she had said about accepting consequences, she was afraid. The door opened. Her father stepped out. Alone. Father, Lyra said, bowing her head. Walk with me, he said. They walked through the corridors of the palace where Lyra had grown up. Her father said nothing for a long time. Finally, they reached a garden, one of the few places on Valoria where things grew wild and untamed. Your mother stood here once, Emperor Thane said quietly, before you were born. She told me that she sometimes felt things she was not supposed to feel. Joy, when looking at flowers, sadness at the thought of loss. She asked me if that made her weak. What did you tell her? I told her what I had been taught to say, that feelings were primitive, that she should meditate and find stillness. He touched a flower gently. She died shortly after you were born. Medical failure, they said. But I have wondered, all these years, if she simply gave up, if a life of perfect stillness was not worth living. Lyra felt tears form in her eyes. She did not try to stop them. The council has made their decision, her father continued. You are exiled from traditional Valorian society. Your title is suspended. But, he paused, you are appointed as cultural ambassador to humanity. A new position. You will live among them, learn from them, and report back to us. Those Valorians who wish to explore this middle path may join you. It is an experiment. If it fails, the exile becomes permanent. And if it succeeds, then perhaps we will learn that evolution is not about becoming less. Perhaps it is about becoming more. He looked at her, and for the first time in her life, Lyra saw emotion on her father's face. Pride. You are braver than I ever was. My daughter. Go. Learn. Teach. And come back someday to show us what you have discovered. 2 weeks later, Lyra stood on Earth for the first time. The shuttle had landed in a place called California, near the ocean. The air smelled of salt and strange growing things. The sun was bright and warm in a way that Valoria's sun never was. Jake was waiting for her at the landing pad, wearing casual clothes instead of his uniform. He smiled when he saw her. "Welcome to Earth, princess." "I am not a princess anymore," Lyra said. "Just Lyra." "Okay." "Welcome to Earth, Lyra." She walked down the ramp, carrying only a small bag. Everything else about her old life had been left behind. She felt terrified and excited at the same time. "Where do we start?" she asked. "Well, I thought we could start with breakfast. There's a place down by the beach that makes amazing pancakes. Then, maybe we could take a walk, and I could show you the ocean. After that, who knows? We've got time to figure it out." "That sounds good," Lyra said. The words felt strange. She was used to planned schedules, to duties and obligations. The idea of just exploring without a clear purpose was foreign, but also wonderful. They walked together down a path that led toward the sound of waves. Around them, humans went about their lives. Children played and laughed. Couples held hands. An old man sat on a bench feeding birds, smiling at nothing in particular. Lyra reached out with her telepathy, gently, and felt the emotional landscape of humanity. It was chaotic and beautiful and overwhelming. Fear and love and hope and sorrow and joy, all mixed together, all perfectly imperfect. "Jake," she said, "I am still afraid. Of feeling too much. Of losing myself. Of failing." "I know," Jake replied. "That's okay. Being afraid is part of being alive. How do you manage it? How do humans live with so much feeling all the time?" Jake thought for a moment. "We don't manage it, really. We just live it. Some days are hard. Some days are amazing. Most days are somewhere in between. But every day, we get to choose. We get to decide if we're going to let fear stop us, or if we're going to feel it and keep going anyway." They reached the beach. Lyra saw the ocean for the first time, vast and blue and endless. Waves crashed against the shore in a rhythm that felt ancient and new at the same time. "It is beautiful," she whispered. "Yeah." Lyra nodded. They walked down to the water's edge. Lyra bent down and touched the water. It was cold and alive and real. She felt it all, every sensation, without trying to control or suppress anything. A wave came in and splashed her robes, making her gasp. Jake laughed. And after a moment, Lyra laughed too. The sound felt strange coming from her throat, but good. Very good. "Thank you," she said, looking at Jake. "For showing me this. For teaching me to feel." "You taught yourself," Jake replied. "I just gave you permission to try." They stood there together, watching the waves roll in and out. Lyra felt the sun on her face, the wind in her hair, the sand beneath her feet. She felt Jake's presence beside her, warm and steady. She felt alive. Behind them, 3 other Valorians were approaching. They had chosen to join Lyra in exile, to explore this new way of being. More would come, she knew. Not all. Maybe not even many. But some. And that was enough. Change did not happen all at once. It happened in small moments, in individual choices, in the courage to feel something new. "What should we do now?" Lyra asked. Jake smiled. "Whatever we want. That's the best part of being human. Or Valorian. Or whatever you are now. You get to choose." Lyra closed her eyes and breathed in the salty air. She felt everything. The good and the bad and the uncertain. She felt afraid and excited and hopeful and alive. "Then I choose this," she said. "I choose to stay. I choose to learn. I choose to feel." She opened her eyes and looked at Jake. "I choose to be here, with you, right now." "Good choice," Jake said. They walked along the beach as the sun climbed higher in the sky. Two beings from different worlds learning to walk the same path. Behind them, the ocean waves kept their endless rhythm. Ahead of them, the future stretched out uncertain and beautiful. Lyra was no longer a perfect Valorian princess. She was no longer bound by the ancient rules of her people. She was simply herself. Afraid and brave and feeling everything. And that was enough.